that belongs to Get Work Group called IDEAlliance, and I'm going to be talking about moving beyond the page. IDEAlliance, if you're not familiar with us, is a membership association, and we, like Get Work Group, identify best practices, specifications, that sort of thing. And we have folks that are across the digital media supply chain. So everyone from brand owners, agencies, publishers, to printers, material suppliers like ink suppliers, paper suppliers, press suppliers, and then technology companies like Adobe. Our organization is now more than 500 corporations from around the world. We have an international membership. These are IDEAlliance affiliates in Hong Kong, Korea, Colombia, and Mexico. We develop specifications, as I said. They're all over the map, the specifications that we have. So NextPub I'm going to be talking about now. Prism is a metadata specification, and Prism and NextPub work together. But we have specifications you've probably heard of in sheet fed offset, Grackle, and G7, and SWAP. And I happen to work in the mailing and postal industry with all the XML messages for logistics for delivering everything from first class mail to big truckloads of magazines going to subscribers in the US. We have certification programs. Probably our newest one on the system side is for digital presses for color, and also personal kinds of certification programs. Okay, so we're going to be talking about moving beyond the page as we know it. You all know that publishing is rapidly evolving, okay, to tap, and we're moving beyond the page as we know it. The key for our members is trying to stay ahead of the technology curve, so that's where IDEAlliance working groups, committees, and so forth focus, so that we can all move together in a standardized way. What the Kindle did for book publishing, the iPad in April 2010 did for magazines. Many, many magazines are on the iPad today. Lots and lots of magazines. In the US, the iPad is the primary tablet for publishing. It owns between 90 and 93% of the market. I think that may change as Kindle, Amazon brings the Kindle Fire to market. People are really excited about that. The growth that was predicted by all of the analysts really has met the expectation. If you take tablets and e-readers together, you see these huge, huge growth. Everybody wants an iPad, or now I think a Kindle Fire. We're actually bringing what's in the print world to this small tablet device. We don't have the business models in place yet. It's very difficult. I work primarily on the magazine publishing side. The book industry was rocked by the fact that Amazon either does not let the publishers know the profile of who's buying their books, or they sell it back to them. In magazine publishing, we depend on advertising. We don't have our advertising models in place, and we don't have our subscription models in place. Typically, there aren't many subscriptions available on the iPad because magazines need to know who subscribes so they can sell the ads. If they don't know who's reading their magazine, it's very difficult to sell the ads. With the Kindle Fire coming to market, one thing you're going to see, and I think most, at least Time Incorporated and Hearst and probably Condé Nast, are moving to a model where every ad that's appearing in print is going to be on those tablet editions come January of this year. They're going to be exact replicas of what was on print. If you read some of the magazines, at least the US magazines on tablets, what you see is there's not very much advertising, and what it is highly interactive, highly, I think, expensive to produce. But the mainstream ads, if you look at your paper magazine and your iPad, what's in the paper magazine doesn't make it to the iPad. So now we're experimenting. It's typically, the deal is no cost. In fact, you have to opt out because many of the magazines that originally came to the iPad and tablets were not replicas. They are highly interactive, a lot of expense in producing those. Now that, now that the wow factor is kind of over with, and we've seen as much wow as we can, other magazines are coming on board with what we call replicas, and that's where PDF actually fits in very, very nicely, and both for the ads and for the magazine content itself. But this year was the year of the tablet. At the Consumer Electronics Show this year, there were 80 tablets announced. I thought maybe 15 would make it to market. There were more than that. Some came and went, but we're seeing a lot of interest in tablets. The big challenge for publishers is, as these come to market, they're different sizes, they're different aspect ratios, they're different resolutions, and they're different operating systems. So what it means is you don't produce for a tablet just once and it goes on any tablet. Oh no, you have to produce it for each tablet, each aspect ratio, each operating system, and so forth. And so at least that's been to date. Now come January and new magazines coming on, especially on Kindle Fire, these are going to be replicas, and they're going to do it once and use the pinch and zoom and all of that stuff. It tells me that the art directors are becoming numb with designing for every size and aspect ratio and so forth, and so they're numbed enough right now that they're going to let one design go to different sizes. We'll see what happens. But at any rate, the impact of the iPad and magazines was huge on the publishers. Publishers were given only 80 days notice. That is, here's the device, figure out how you're going to get something on it. And that's publishers and their partners, the technology companies. 80 days is not enough time. It's not enough time to plan new workflows, to get new tools in place. Basically, it was, David, I often use your, it's a stair-step view of disruptive change. It was level one, meaning it was an initial response to change. When magazines started going to these tablets, processes were unpredictable, poorly controlled, reactive. It was a wild, wild west. And every issue of the magazine that was published was done in a new way. They tried to find economies of scale. They tried to streamline. As Andy was saying, nobody hired new staff. They drew staff from around the magazine if they needed new skill sets. They may have hired a few contractors. They did not put on new staff. The estimate that I've heard is anywhere between 25% and 90% more manpower and dollars and effort was to produce an iPad edition in addition to print at the same time. They hit when it hit the newsstand, it hit the iTunes store. So there were a lot of very tired, exhausted, angry people for quite a few months. Right now, we're a year into it, and since then we have found some efficiencies, but we're really challenged because as we found efficiencies to publish to the iPad, then we have the Galaxy to publish to, which is a totally different size and aspect. And then we have, the Zoom, and then we have all the other ones. So the pressure really hasn't, really hasn't changed. So this really brought the future that we all saw coming. It made it very real for every single publisher. So if we look at the tablet editions, we have designed new kinds of content, new kinds of navigation, but the most interesting thing to me is that it's based on print. And when you think about if you've ever read a tablet, not a Kindle, but if you use a tablet, you know that it's very, very tactile. And print is tactile. You turn a page. Well, on the iPad or you turn the page. You actually interact with it much in the same way you do with print. And I think that's one of the reasons that we love print, and I think that's one of the reasons that we love the tablet. So there are all kinds of new content. If you haven't read magazines on the iPad. One of the new things is slideshow. This is from Time Magazine. It was a year ago in the summer, Gulf oil spill. This is a pelican covered with oil, and you swiped it and you got to see many, many images. Where in the print you'd see one. What you see in a tablet or interactive edition is you use your finger and you slide through, and you see pictures all the way from the greasy, oily pelican to, the pelican flying away. You also have links between these devices and the web, so they're bringing things together. This is one from the World Cup, Sports Illustrated. You tap on that, links to the website, and you can see your team's latest scores. Photo interactivity is another kind of thing. This is from Wired Magazine. It's about a coral reef, and there's numbers on the side, and if you touch a different number, you see a different configuration of a coral reef. This is a photo text swap. This is Sports Illustrated. They have a feature called Faces in the Crowd. They're up and coming new athletes. And if you touch an athlete's picture, when you touch the picture, you get their bio swapped in. So this is the kind of thing that I mean by new kinds of interactivity. The thing that surprised me when this happened is I really thought that it would be the team that created content for the web that did the iPad. And I was wrong. That's not the way, that's not what turned out to be at all. It turns out that the print production team, in the vast majority of cases, is the team responsible for developing the tablet editions. There's a real reason for this. One, of course, is that we wanted to mimic what happens in print with navigation on these tablets. So there is navigation. I didn't put the slides in here, but from the cover, you can tap any of the cover stories and go directly to them. You can go to the table of contents, which we would expect, but there's a scrubber at the bottom, all the page images that you can use, just like you're thumbing through the magazine. There's all kinds of navigation that matches how we use the magazine. The other thing that's important, though, is first, the design is based on print, but the print production people have this mentality for a production schedule. If you think about content on the web, it kind of goes on and off at various times. They don't have to get to the printer. They don't have to make sure that all the content is pulled together to go to the newsstand on Tuesday or on a certain day of a month. The people who understand that kind of scheduling are the print production people.
And as a matter of fact, I just want to interject one thing here because I think it's very important, especially for printers here.
Yeah.
The largest publication printers in the U.S., and I would say the top 10, it probably even goes to more than that.
Yeah, it does.
Have all gotten into tablet production for their print clients.
Right.
That's what they're doing now.
And that is where the printers, because they have all these processes in place.
They understand the business, they understand the customer, they understand distribution, they have all of those things already in line, so it's not a big leap for them. There's a technology issue, but they either buy it or learn it.
Right, and they deal with those technology issues all the time.
Yeah.
And so you're exactly right, David. That's what we see in the U.S. is the big printers, and not even
just
the big
US,
ones.
also in Europe too.
They're getting into this tablet production. It makes sense. So there's huge impacts on workflows. Many publishers and printers have this linear print workflow. You conceptualize it, you design it, you take the pictures, you write the stories, you do the pre-press, and you go to press. And so now, how do we get to the tablets? They really started out kind of in parallel. And one of the things that we found over time is that they're finding places that they can work together. So the design for the magazine and the tablet is done at the same time with the same team. Then when content for print is being written, photographed, and so forth, the extra content enhancements, the videos, the extra photos, and so forth, are being prepared. When the magazine goes to the printer, that's the point that it now is, the enhancements are now added in. There's really two kinds of magazines. I would say initially they were these highly interactive magazine, and it was a big deal when Sports Illustrated came to the iPad. What we're going to see now is the next generation hitting are going to be what are called replicas.
Right.
They're just like the print. They don't have the extra layers on them.
It's a little bit, they have added a little bit of interactivity, but it's nothing like what they were showing.
And
those were like technology demos.
right. And the other thing to realize is that what's on this device is not dynamically rendered. It is pre-rendered. So the art directors, if you look at the print next to the iPad, because of the size and the aspect ratios, they're actually laying out, doing a second layout of what they did for print, a second layout for the iPad, the 10-inch. And then when they go to the Galaxy, they do a third layout. It's not very efficient. So the more tablets, the more versions that they have to produce. And so the challenge here is scale. When I do my print, I write, I edit, I design, I print, I deliver, and now I have to do the iPad. So what do? Edit number 2. I might have to add, take things away, package for the iPad. Now it's the next one. For Windows Marketplace, for Chrome, each operating system, each size was a different thing. So the problem was the complexities are increasing every time we have a new screen size resolution operating system. It's not an easy thing to do, and that's where we have to be. Magazines are making a decision in 3 ways. Number 1 is which makes sense for my readership. Does this small tablet size make sense for my content? Some of them are deciding no, or some of them are saying yes, it makes absolute sense. So their publishers are now making decisions. They don't go to every tablet. Although Time Incorporated, for example, with Time Magazine, Sports Illustrated, they do go to every new tablet that comes on the market. Their marketing thing is we're there. We're where they call it 360 degrees. Wherever you are, we are. Smartphone, wherever you are. So there's those decisions being made, and now we're backing down and making the decision about how much interactivity. No one right now is really thinking about some of the issues that you've spoken about here, and that is, what does the color look like when it gets to one of these devices? And I think that's coming, but
They have bigger fish to fry.
Right now that's not the case. So what's the answer? Where do we go from here? The publishers early on, like after that, really when the first 80 days hit, they're like, we can't afford to do this, and we know more target platforms are coming. We just can't afford to do it for each tablet. Okay. Come on. So they really got involved with IDEAlliance right in the beginning about establishing some standards. And the standard and the initiative, it's not just a standards, but the initiative is called NextPub. And NextPub, first thing that we're doing is it's a technology incubator. What that means is we bring together the publishers, the agencies, and the technology companies so they can work together and share so the publishers and the agencies can actually share what their vision for the future is with those providing the technology. Too often technology companies say, we know what they need, and they go off and build it, and that's what we get. So there's a great deal of interaction. We have meetings 5 times a year, face-to-face, in New York City, and we see new technologies. And we're able to actually dig into the technologies and ask questions and find out why a technology technology vendor is doing something a certain way, and if that's better or if we have ideas, that's a good thing. Then any kinds of best practices and recommendations to make today's work good, better, more efficient, and then finally looking to the future and developing specifications. This is not a regular IDEAlliance member program, so anybody that's participating is paying a participation fee. Whether they're a member of IDEAlliance or not, those companies are paying a participation fee. And there's content companies and technology companies all working together. The reason they're paying a fee for this is that the deliverables are very fast-paced, and so we're hiring outside help to do, you know, some of the work on this because it was very important to these participants that we have our first specifications out in 1 year. So they're going to be publicly available about the middle of November or early December. These are other associations that are partnered with us. They view that this activity is critical for their members, but they either don't have the infrastructure to develop the standards or feel that it's better to all work together. So Magazine Media Association, MPA in the US, 4As, which is the Advertising Association. IDPF is the organization that develops EPUB for ebooks, and we were working very closely with them, and most recently JMPA, which is Japanese Magazine Publishing Association, is working with us. So for example, who knew that we would have to specify the flip direction for the magazine, because they have magazines that flip one way or another way, or even supplements within the magazine flipping different directions. What publishers want to do is create and maintain in the future. It's not possible now, but they want to create and maintain one source. And we're focused right now on the content, but I also think the graphic images and all of those things have to be, the video formats, those all have to be considered, and color. But they want to have one source, and from that one source, they want to be able, programmatically, automatically, as you kind of indicated earlier today, to kind of select what goes and to create editions. I think Andy was talking about National Geographic, which they participate with us, and the Japanese MPA folks there actually publish their work in Asia, and they're very interested in sharing content, having regional editions. The whole advertising piece is a whole another piece. But we're limited today. We have workflows in place that don't support that. We don't have media agnostic publishing models, and our tools today are not what we need to do that job. The people that got together really understand that they need this neutral source for their content, and it should be XML, because it separates what something looks like from what the content is, and it lets you reuse content and go to all of these different channels. We built this specification on a number of standards. First was to build on today's standards. So we looked at the publishing industry, we looked at what the standards in place today are. Number two, we look to employ emerging technologies. We're building something for the future, so we're going to build on things like HTML5, Cascading Style Sheets 3, Java, EPUB 3, RDFA. And then we're seeking broad industry collaboration. So IDPF are the ebook folks, W3C of course web, MPA is Magazine Publishing Association, the 4As is out of the advertising agencies, and working with the Ghent work group. So the solution that we are going to be publishing near the end of the year is built on two pieces. Prism, which is a very robust set of metadata for describing content. It has been in development since 2000. I think the first one was at that Seabolt in 2001.
Yeah.
It was before people even knew what metadata is. There's metadata sets to describe everything from different kinds of content. We just finished our recipe metadata specification. Recipes are huge in publishing today. And the publishers want to be able to reuse a recipe from a magazine, a cookbook, and a web, put them all in a recipe database and feed them out to different sources. So what we're defining is a content source, rich content. The content source is, and this is a XML diagram, it's got very robust metadata so that we know everything we can about this piece of content. Whether it's a digital image, a video, a story, a recipe, whatever it is, we know all about it. And then actually coding the content for publication is going to be HTML5 compliant. Because we're looking at the idea of having all of this content in a central repository, and out of that repository we're going to pull print, web, all the different kinds of tablets, smartphones, whatever it is. And it turns out that we've made a decision, and it's the same decision that IDPF has made for the next generation of ebooks, and that is that HTML5 is the future. It's not done yet, but if we can have all of our content coded in HTML5, our transformations going to these different places are going to be much easier than if it was stored in something else. One article, one source file, different style sheets, using the metadata to select what goes where, and multiple outputs. So we will be publishing. We can send a note when the drafts are posted. But by December, and since I'm the editor, I'm like writing fabulously. But it's nextpub.org. We're going to be publishing a couple of things. We're going to be publishing XML source, what we expect the source to look like. And that will include a whole new version of Prism metadata, because as we got into describing content, the descriptions that we need to be able to go not only to print but to the other platforms, the metadata vocabularies have been vocabularies added, and there's whole taxonomies ready to use right out of the box available for recipes. Usage rights is huge. There's a whole usage rights vocabulary. So all those are going to be updated and posted in December. Following the next year, our idea is to have source and transformations. So we're going to be working on transformations from the source so that you can first of all go to EPUB 3, which is going to be, I think, a big channel. Not only for books, but EPUB 3 was done working with IDEAlliance. It has a lot of things that we need for publishing magazines. They didn't put ads in. I was not happy about that, but we'll figure a way around that. But so transformations to EPUB 3, HTML5 for browsers. So that kind of plays to where Amazon is going with Kindle, is going to be HTML5. And then to the magazine aggregators is the third one. But what we figure is if we have good source, as something new comes to the market, if our content is rich enough, we should be able to write a new transform and go there. And so that's the strategy, and that's what NextPub is. It's not a delivery format. It's a source with transformations.
It's a basic infrastructure,
Right.
to allow growth.
Questions?
It's late.
It's late, yeah, I'm sorry we kept you a lot later than we expected, but we had so much to tell you.
Well, they had more than their money's worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I have one actually.
Yeah.
How do you see it? How does it fit within current solutions like the digital publishing?
Oh, see, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, so that's why NextPub is a technology incubator as well as the specification. So very, very interesting. Adobe, for example, is investing huge amounts in HTML5 and Cascading Style Sheets 3. Adobe has actually proposed, you know this, a new module for Cascading Style Sheets, and it's called Regions. And what Regions does is it lets you define regions with your style sheet, and it lets you define parameters for how much something can squeeze and adjust. It's like padding.
That's like page flex.
Sort of, yes. So anyway, part of the idea is publishers today can begin to establish their infrastructure. Most magazines, at least the major magazines in the US, have their articles stored in something very close to this. It's Prism, and it's based on XHTML. So we're going to be enhancing the metadata and making a slight shift to HTML5 from XHTML. But they already have their content. They've made a lot of investments.
That's not a big leap anymore.
In the content. So you're right, the tools to do this are not there, but part of the idea of the NextPub initiative is so the publishers can, if they make a commitment, this is where we're going, tools will follow. We have a meeting November 1st, and we have a new player who you've never heard of before, who knows a lot about PDF and a lot about XML, and is going to be showing a new technology to do transforms like we're talking about. So, you know, if you share your vision with the technology companies and they understand, oh yeah, this makes sense, we have to make authoring this way easier. We have to make the idea of styling. Styling is so important in magazines. That's why everything is pre-rendered. Now, we're beating down the art directors, so they're going to accept a little bit more flexibility than they ever would have a year ago. But, you know, so we're going to have to meet in the middle. And there will be some kinds of publications that will never have automated styling. They'll have to, you know, be designed like they are today. But I think you'll see more things going in that direction.
And I think you'll see, I mean, if you just look at what Adobe's done between CS5
Yeah.
and CS 5.5, you know, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, it's Flash, it's this, it's that, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 5.5 is a look into the future.
oh yeah, 5.5 was definitely, yeah, 6 is going to be
Amazing.
it's going to be very big, it's a big move.
Yeah, yeah. So the technology companies are already making big moves, but the idea is if we can share with them what will be efficient and make publishing profitable and make us all survive.
Well, I think that's important.
It's really important.
You know, if you think about it, less than 6 months ago, you had a company like Woodwing, who was in it early, kind of beat Adobe to the punch in many respects, saying, no, it's going to be our way or the highway.
Hey,
And
we
then-
have an open standard.
And now all of a sudden, yeah, we have an open standard, and all of a sudden, they're now playing nice with Adobe because they know that, you know what? It's not going to be their open standard, and they better start playing with everybody.
And now,
Yeah, now
Adobe and they
DPS
have an agreement.
Yeah, they're buddies now.
Really?
Yeah, so both of them are speaking at NextPub on
They're still jockeying, but it's, you know, the enemy, you want your enemy to be closer, right?
So when something like that announcement happens, they're both coming to NextPub on November 1st, November 1st, and the publishers are going to ask them, so,
Right.
what is this agreement between Woodwing and Adobe? What does this mean? And it's not an easy audience. The publishers are not an easy audience. They really
It's cost them a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
This has been a hell of a year for them.
Yeah.
what was supposed to be a much less expensive way to publish content turned out to be a very expensive way to publish content, and now they're into it and they don't have any alternative.
Right, yeah, yeah, so.
All right, well, with that, thank you all for coming.